Catflap Chat, episode 59. I'm delighted to have our very first golfer on today. Ladies European Tour player, the Women's PGA winner, Lydia Hall. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you, and how has this year been for you so far? I can imagine it's been pretty mental.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for having me, and hope everyone had a lovely Christmas, first of all. Yeah, it's been a very difficult year for everyone. I don't think our, professional sport has been a priority. Obviously, health has been the main priority, but it's been very different. And yeah, everyone's had to adapt. And I think, slowly, everyone's trying to adapt and do the best they can during these very difficult times. But from a professional point of view, it's been a little bit up and down. There's been lots of highs, lots of good, and a little bit of bad and ugly as well of golf in there.
Yeah.
But no, it's nice to have this amount of time at home. It's the first time I've been home for the whole of December in probably 13 years as a tour professional. So yeah, it's really nice to be at home in Wales, even though it's cold, rainy, and you can't do much at the moment. It's really nice to be around the family.
What's this year been like then in terms of like schedule wise? So I read that you're in Australia, got stuck in Australia for a lot longer than normal, and I think for me, like I play a little bit of golf probably 6-7 times a year. My knowledge of golf is probably the Masters, and then same as everyone, kind of that's it. Although weirdly, having been indoors a lot more this year, I've actually watched more ladies golf as well, and I saw you at the Saudi Open recently. We watched that. And what's your schedule been like this year? Because you have still got some golf played this year, didn't you?
Yeah, so pretty much we went to Australia early February, and we had 3 events over there. That took us into kind of early March, I think, where my plan was to stay there for another week, do some practice, and then head over to the Saudi's Ladies International, and then head back to Australia for a few weeks of practice and training before kind of coming back to Europe. And a heavy schedule all the way through from kind of April through to pretty much end of November was going to be pretty full packed, 3 weeks on, maybe 1 week off. And then obviously things started to change, and with probably 5 or 6 days before my flight to Saudi, things started to obviously change dramatically worldwide. Borders started getting closed, but Saudi were really eager to get us there regardless, creating tournament bubbles, getting everyone tested. So until the final hour, really, they called it off. We were kind of waiting to hear if it's going ahead, if it's not, if they're going to open the borders, if they can charter flights for players. In the end, there was too many logistical issues and safety for players, and also safety for all the staff and the area we were traveling to. They decided that, no, we're going to have to postpone it and look to later on in the year to see what happens with COVID. So yeah, my plan was kind of stay there for a few more weeks and then maybe head back. But then things started to get worse, obviously, as everyone's aware. And, Wales went into a kind of semi-lockdown in England. So I thought, well, I'm in Australia. Everyone's pretty spread out. It's a safe country. I'm going to stay here as long as I can. So I extended my visa because obviously I would have been there since the end of January. So my 90 days was kind of coming up at this point. And during that time, I was ticking off the tournaments that I was meant to be, in Spain and Italy and France, and everything was just getting cancelled left, right and centre. And it ended up staying there until the 1st of August. So that was 7 months in Australia with no competitive golf until I think the last time we played was just the end of February. And everyone was in the same boat. A lot of the girls were in a worse situation than I was because they couldn't go to the gym, whereas pretty much the gyms maybe shut for 2-3 weeks. Okay. Golf courses were all shut. Everyone was on lockdown, so everyone was just doing practice in the garden into a net pretty much. And I was lucky enough that I was there, and I think they shut the golf course maybe for 2 weeks. But other than that, everything opened up, and they managed to kind of control it very well there in Queensland.
Yeah.
So I was really lucky, you know. I stayed there until the Scottish Open was our first event back to kind of competitive golf on the Ladies European Tour, and that was a huge difference, you know, compared to the year prior. We were in a lockdown hotel, so it was players, staff only, tested pre-travel, you know, tested upon arrival. You could only order food to your room, so you couldn't go to the restaurant or bar or leave the hotel. There was a certain route that you had to walk out of the hotel to the car park even. You got your symptoms checked every single morning by, you know, your temperature check every single morning. So it's a very, very different situation to be in, you know, from competing in February where we would just rock up, stay with whoever you want to stay with. Now you're isolated in your room. You can't stay with anyone other than your caddy. So yeah, everyone kind of adapted pretty quickly. And if, you know, we all wanted to compete, and if we had to kind of do those things, then we were going to do them. So yeah, it was very different, a big change. And by that point, I think we were looking at best to get 14 tournaments completed from the Scottish, which was early August, until the end of November. So that was kind of the goal. And the Ladies European Tour with the LPGA and all the other organising bodies did a really, really good job to control it, and managed to get the 14 events done. So yeah, we were looking at, I think at the start of the year, close to 24 to 28 events. So pretty much half of the season was cancelled. But yeah, it's been a very difficult time. We're lucky that we're in a position that we could kind of, you know, go ahead and compete, and try and make an earning during these really bad times.
There's a lot I want to pick up on there, on kind of what you said across there. Firstly, can I just ask, because this is, I've always wondered this, I've never asked anyone, what's the difference between the European Tour and the PGA Tour?
So the easiest way to describe it from like a rugby point of view is probably seeing the Super 14, or what is it, 16 now in Australia in the Southern Hemisphere, compared to the European Championship League. So you've got totally different players competing on different tours. So the men's PGA is based in America, and a majority of the players are American. We've got the same, which is the LPGA. So that's based in America, a lot of American and Korean players. And then vice versa, we've got the men's European Tour based in Europe, mainly European Tours events. And the same, the Ladies European Tour based in Europe. Majority of players are from Europe, and compete in Europe. But during kind of the 4-5 majors that we have, those kind of tours come together and the best in the world compete, you know, at the British Open and at the Evian Masters and those kind of major events. So
that
kind of two different tours, competing in different parts of the world, generally at the same time. And then during probably 4 or 5 events of the year, those two tours meet and then compete at the majors.
And so you've been with the European Tour since you turned pro, or for a long time at least?
Since I turned pro in 2008 was my rookie year on tour. So I pretty much finished my A-levels, had a year playing all the amateur circuit. And then I was 19 in the October, I went to Italy to get what's called your tour card. So you compete for 2 weeks, and then the top 25 gain status to join the tour and play on the circuit from there. So 2008 was my rookie year. So I've done 13 years now.
And would you go across the WPGA then, or would you always stay with it? Like, do players go from one to the other depending on, I don't know how it works, like in football and rugby, there's obviously transfers and things like that. Like, how does it work in golf?
Yeah, so it's pretty much the same principle. So if I wanted to go and play the LPGA, which I've tried to once, you have to go through that qualifying process again to be able to join the tour. So you
Okay.
go to Florida for 2 weeks. I mean, the entry fee is $5,000. So first of all, what stopped me is the lack of sponsorship. First and foremost, is it's so expensive. It cost me to go once. It cost me $10,000 to pay my entry fees, flights, caddies, and all of those costs to get out there to try and gain my tour card to then join the LPGA tour.
Yeah.
So again, you have to finish in a certain, top 30. I mean, there's usually around 600 girls that enter the LPGA Q school every year. So you have to finish in the top 25, I think it is now, out of those 600 over, 3 stages.
Yeah.
To gain your tour card. So it's not an easy task. And obviously with a lack of sponsorship, there's more pressure because you feel like I'm throwing in $10,000, here, and I've got to make it work.
Yeah.
So ideally, that's where I'd like to go for a few years. But it's just down to the pure cost of it. And then when you're on tour as well, they're playing close to 32 events a year. So then your expenses are pretty much doubled. So yeah, that's kind of been the thing, because the reason why I want to go over and play there is because you're playing for over $1 million every single week. Whereas on average, our purses are probably around 300,000 euros. So it's pretty much half. You're playing for half the money.
Yeah.
And also to gain more like Rolex rankings points. So to get higher in the world, you've got to be playing against more ranked players to get a better ranking. So, that's why the likes of, your Rory McIlroys and Tommy Fleetwoods and those in the men's game, they head over to the PGA Tour, because if they want to get in the top 10 in the world, they have to play over there. To be playing against the best, you get more ranking points, and you're earning more money as well.
There's loads I want to pick up on this.
It's quite complex.
Everyone sees, like you just said, everyone sees your Tiger Woods, your Rory McIlroys, grew up playing Tiger Woods on the PlayStation, whatever it was.
Yeah.
They see that end, the FedEx winners, and they're winning X, Y, Z millions of dollars every year, race to Dubai, all the other stuff. No one ever sees that level below, which is still professional. But from what I can understand, you are literally paying your way every week to go to these different tournaments. And then if you don't place, if you don't make the cut, then place top 10, you're not getting your money back, let alone let alone like winning tens of thousands into hundreds of thousands of pounds, which we all think professional sport, everyone's minted. Well, actually, if you don't do well, and sometimes you just have an absolute Western, you've lost a load of money to go and do it all again the following week.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's why I always say yes to these podcasts, is to raise awareness, especially from I don't want to play the male-female card. That's just pure down to the men have been playing longer. There's more TV coverage, and more people are watching it because that's their only option. I feel like if the women, like you just said, that you've been watching it more because it's been on more. I've noticed this over the Christmas period, the LPGA Tour, they've had a lot of airtime during these, replays of tournaments. But I think because we don't have the opportunity to get, because we're competing against the men's tour every single week, then people don't get to hear about players' stories in the women's game. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's every single week you're fighting, to obviously win, but on average, every tournament costs between £1,500 and £2,000.
Yeah.
So that's your entry fee, flights, down to the penny of like your petrol to the airport. It's like having a holiday every week,
Yeah.
And then you've got your caddy fees on top of that. So then by the time you get to the tournament and you're about to tee it up on a Thursday morning, you've probably spent close to £2,000. And in the women's event, if it's, let's say, a 300,000 purse, a pot to play for, then you have to finish within the top 20 to even break even, let alone make a profit. So I think the awareness of that, if you've got unlimited amount of sponsorship, then you're probably not aware of that. But having limited sponsorship, you're aware of where every single penny goes and how you need to perform and what you need to do to make sure you're at very minimum in the top 20. Now, if you flip it on its head, a guy maybe playing on the European tour, if they finish dead last and make the cut, they're earning close to 5,000. So they could finish 60th. So you've got 126 in the field.
Yeah.
If you finish 60th, you just make the cut, you're making a profit. You're doubling your money every single week.
Jesus.
But we have to finish, 20th, sometimes even better than that, to even make a profit. And I think they're the stories that you don't hear about.
No, you don't. And just on that there, because again, this is probably for another time, but when you see people on Twitter or Facebook or whatever talk about women's rugby or women's football and the quality, and then I think it was the USA captain was really outspoken that women should be paid the same as men, and I understand the business side of why they're not, because it's what brings in the money versus what can then get pushed out to the players, and so I understand that, right? But you couldn't put a woman in a men's rugby game. Probably couldn't too well in a football game, but you could put a female golfer in the men's field in golf, because I would assume the differences would be distance off the tee and distance in shot. But the rest of it, then I would imagine that you got some of the best players in the female game would rank in that cut and top 60 regularly in men's tournaments.
Yeah, and we've tried it actually the last couple of years. There's been a lot more interest in that. So the main difference in the men's game is distance, power, strength, and speed. And everyone knows, men are faster, men are stronger. That's just basic
genetics,
science. Yeah, absolutely. So they tried in Jordan. We went there 2 years ago, and it was a really, really good event. Unfortunately, we didn't play this year, but they brought 3 tours together, which was really interesting. So you've got the Ladies European Tour, the Challenge Tour, which is like the feeder, the development tour to the European Tour, men's tour. So you've got boys who are probably, early 20s and trying to achieve to get, onto the main European Tour.
Yeah.
And then the third tour, which was the Champions Tour, and that's the men's seniors tour. So that's over 55, I believe, men. So you've got players from, different, they're all professional golfers, every single one. So you had 30 players from each tour, so the top 30 from each of those 3 tours, all competing for 1 trophy and 1 prize check.
Yeah.
And the only difference was distance, so they just put us off different tees.
Of course.
But the only thing with that, to make it fair, is that, if I was to play with the world number 1, Dustin Johnson, he would probably hit it easily, and carry the ball 60 yards past my drive.
Okay.
So my tee would have to be a minimum of 60 yards ahead of his. But then what you've got to remember and take in consideration, if we're on the fairway in the same position, now you're thinking his irons go further than my irons. Yeah. So if we're 150 yards away from the flag, I'd be hitting an 8-iron. He's probably hitting a pitching wedge.
Yeah.
So then you've got to think, okay, so that's 3 clubs. So now actually the tees need to be 80 yards ahead of the men to make it fair to hit the same clubs into the greens for different pin positions.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes a lot more complex and difficult, because it's all well and good saying, well, he hits it 60 past an average female, average men, average women distance, and then just set the course up so that we're 60 yards ahead of them. But what I think people sometimes forget is that, well, to make it fair for certain pin positions, we could be going with a 7-iron and they're going in with a wedge. So you have to even shorten it even further to make it fair. So it was a really, really good event. And one of the LET girls was doing really well, Meg McLaren. She was tied for the lead going into the last day. And she ended up finished second. So it was a good showing. And I think they made it as fair as possible without, as their first go. Yeah. But I think yeah, there's a long way to go to make, you know, the setup of the golf course. It's just so complex because of those issues that I just raised regarding it's all well and good, you know, putting us forward on a tee, but we've got to be going into the holes with the same clubs to make it fair. You know, some of these
Yeah.
guys are hitting it so far now. It's like us females going around a par 3 golf course, the way that they're hitting it so far.
Yeah.
It's not even comprehensible.
Well, they're on about, was it DeChambeau the other week hitting it out 400 yards or whatever, he was hitting it, and they were like, we need to change the men's game now to stop him taking over. So, you know, if
Yeah,
that's what they're doing just in the men's game, then obviously the difference then between the women's distances and the men's
yeah.
will
And
come
that's
in.
the thing, you know, if you look over the stats over the last 10 years, even the women's game, everyone's got longer, at least probably 2 clubs longer. And the carry, I mean, there's a few girls on the LPGA now who carry distance at 280, which
Yeah.
is probably, you know, at the lower end of the men's tour. So even the girls, I mean, we all work out, we're all getting stronger, we're all trying to increase our club head speed, but you know, they're always going to be that far ahead. And yeah, what Bryson's doing with the game at the moment, I think he's scaring a lot of the other tour players. And
Yeah.
you see them all posting that they're working out and lifting X amount and, you know, trying to hit it as hard as they can. But yeah, I just think there's obviously, you know, he's won so many events this year, but I think his putting stats have won those tournaments, not just the length. But
Yeah, of course.
yeah, it's really interesting to see what he's doing, and maybe it'll attract a new kind of generation, and more kids will kind of take up the game because of it.
There's something around that, and the nostalgia of Tiger still playing, and then you've had some really good British golfers come through, like your Rose and your McIlroys, and then you've got someone like him coming from left field, just challenging now, and people going, well, actually, that's how I want to play golf. But the purist still loves your Tiger Woods and still wants him to come back and do well. So no matter what he brings to the game, for me, that'll always be, that's amazing. But
Yeah,
I'd rather
yeah,
Tiger win. So I don't know. It'd be
yeah, absolutely.
interesting. It's
And that,
it's oh, go on.
no, I was just going to say, and that's the beauty of golf. You know, there's so many different elements to it. You can hit the ball as hard as you like, but you still have to have this skill to
Yeah,
play, you know, a short-sided bunker shot or generate, you know, cut spin because you're behind a tree, or, you know, you're putting, which is, you know, feel and pace. And that's the beauty of it. You can hit the ball as hard as you like, but you still got to get it in the hole.
it must be the most frustrating game I've ever played. Like I
Oh,
love going out.
absolutely.
I love going out there. Like I genuinely feel like sometimes I played. Where did I play? Must have been just before this other lockdown at the Celtic Manor with a few of the boys. And I
Yeah.
think I was 14 holes in, and I was on 26 points. And
Brilliant.
but I'd go around the course in 100, 110. Like, do you know what I mean? I can get
Yeah.
around, I can play, but I'm not any good by any stretch of the imagination, right? But I felt like I was in my groove. But it's weird how you can just like hit one shot and then you're like, wicked, no worries. And then you hit the next shot. And now I've got to the point where I know that I've lifted my head a bit. And
Yeah.
I've got to a point where I understand that now. So keep my head down, I'll get through it. But how you can
Yeah.
swing exactly the same twice and the ball go left and right in two different, like, it frustrates the hell out of me so
I know
much.
it is one of the most frustrating sports. And actually, during this long lockdown, you know, I teach as well when I'm at home,
Yeah.
and so I've got a certain amount of understanding of the golf swing and how people feel. Excuse me. But the closest it's come is we've got. Sorry, I got a tickle.
That's right, go on.
It's bloody cold.
That's right, you
Just a
carry
minute.
on.
Yeah, so we got a dartboard.
Yeah. I seen it
And
in the background then.
yeah, and that is the closest I've come to, oh, I've got this now. And then 2 seconds later, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bad.
Is it a bit chicken and egg in terms of you said about the business and sponsorship side of things there, both individually as players, so you looking for sponsors and what they would get back from you as a partner, but then also businesses looking after the women's game in general. Like if one was to invest heavily, the benefits then would come through the other side. But which one's gonna, are the TV companies going to go, we're going to focus heavily on the women's game, so therefore they'll find sponsors, or sponsors going to come through and go, we want to invest in this, and therefore then the TV coverage picks up?
Yeah, it's kind of the chicken and egg. I think what's the difficult thing is that without us getting more TV airtime, it's really hard to attract individual sponsors. Because ultimately everyone wants their logo to be seen on TV and their brands to be. So without that, we can't get individual sponsors.
Yeah.
So we need the likes of, the big banks and the big car companies and these huge corporations to invest in the women's game to then get more TV coverage. So then it makes it a little bit easier, for us, one, to play for an amount of money that we can actually make a living, but also to attract, sponsors individually, because without the TV coverage, that's the hard battle then, is that we can't get individual sponsors, to help us fund our expenses. So then whatever we make on the golf course is kind of our earnings.
Yeah.
And that's the battle for, I would probably say 75% of the players on the Ladies European Tour, is that the majority of the money that they earn on the golf course goes back into the pot to then pay for the next week or the next 2-3 weeks. I had a decent paycheck in Saudi, but that's in the pot to cover my expenses for next year. So it's not as if like, oh, I've earned X amount of money, I can go and buy this, buy that, and spend my cash. I have to think, no, I can't be doing that, because that has to go back into the pot to pay for my season next year. Whereas, if I'd had that finish in the men's event, I probably would have earned close to £300,000. Now that's a totally different, 10 times, more than 10 times the amount. So I can then go and buy myself an apartment somewhere and buy that Porsche that I've been dreaming about. But you can't even compare the difference in money, and it basically comes down to exposure and TV. Without huge heavy investment in the women's game to gain exposure on the TV, as individuals and players, then we can't get individual sponsors. So it's kind of, without one, we can't get the other at the moment.
Yeah, that's tough. I read somewhere, I don't know if it was you, but somewhere, one of the ladies said if they were a man, they would have earned over $1 million now easily. But they had earned, I don't know, 400,000 or 500,000 or whatever. But if they're a man, they'd easily be a millionaire just because of.
Oh yeah, easily. I would be. If I had won. I've won the British Masters in 2012.
Yeah.
If I had won that on the men's tour, that would have £1 million check, €1 million check.
Life-changing amounts.
It is, yeah, but that's all purely down to TV and the investment. And that's no sour grapes against the men. That's just the brand and where they are. I'm hoping that in the next 10, 15 years, then the women, will be playing for those kinds of money and can actually make a living, because a lot of the girls at the moment, I've got a second job. I teach when I can, but obviously COVID doesn't allow, but I also do Amazon Flex, which is delivering bloody parcels. And that's what a lot of people don't know. There's a lot of girls with bar jobs when they're at home, because obviously you have to do things that are flexible, so you can, go to the gym, do your training and do all your swing work and practice. That's 6-7 hours of the day at least. And then go and do a job in the evening, which allows you to do all of that during the day. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stories that, players on the Ladies European Tour, you could tell. And there's a lot of girls who have had to give up because they can't continue treading water. They can't get out there and compete and know that they have to finish in this position. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to play next week, and then I have to go and get a full-time job and wait till the summertime comes so I can, I'll just compete during, 3 or 4 months, but get a job for the 9 months. There's so many girls who have had to pack it in because they can't just sustain it.
Emotionally, that must be quite tough. Like, not just physically traveling to a new country, new tournament, new continent every week, every other week. Like you said, 14 to 28 events a year.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I suppose, going from week to week, paycheck to paycheck, knowing that one slipped shot, one missed putt is the difference between an extra O on the check or whatever. Like, emotionally, how do you deal with that? Because I love the fact you're obviously playing. Yes, you're a pro and you've got your job, but you're obviously playing for the love of the game. You absolutely love it. You wouldn't put yourself through that. There's easier ways to make money, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I could get a full-time job and probably make the same, if not a little bit more, but it's purely down to the love of competition. I love golf, but I absolutely love the competition side of it. And it's not just competition against all the other competitors, it's more against myself. And that sounds crazy because ultimately that is what determines whether you're going to win or not, is how you manage yourself and your game. You can't control anyone else's game. If someone goes out and shoots 6-7 under for 4 rounds, then they're probably going to win the tournament. But it's more about the competition and the drive of me getting better, because I know ultimately I can be the best in Europe and I can consistently be the best 10 in Europe every single year. But it's finding those little triggers, that I had a good week in Saudi and working on the things that I did well and things that I didn't do well to take into 21 and become even better. But yeah, it's hard for a lot of the girls because, you've got family. A lot of the girls have got kids, have got husbands, so they're away 14 to 20 weeks a year without seeing them, and they could be playing terrible, and they might have got pressures on, paying bills, and they're not seeing their family and they're missing their kids. So, it sounds glamorous and a glamorous lifestyle to be traveling around playing golf. But when you look a little bit closely at the dynamics of it all, it can be a very lonely and stressful situation because you know how much it's costing, and that you have to perform, and you might have been away from your family for 3, 4, 5 weeks. And that's difficult. I haven't got kids, so I haven't got that worry, but it's hard. Whereas again, you flip the coin for the guys. I'm not saying they don't miss their kids, but there's mum's always home with their kids, and they haven't got that worry or stress probably, because they know they've just got to make the cut and they're making money. Whereas a lot of us have to finish in that top 20 to even make a profit. So it can be stressful, but I think a lot of the girls, it's the competitive edge that keeps them going.
I read something, I didn't see it, but I read something that Justin Rose did for the ladies' game. Talk us through that. I only saw it briefly. I hadn't seen it. But what was that about?
Yeah, it's fantastic. So Justin Rose and his wife, Kate, they created the Rose series. So basically, due to COVID, all of our tournaments got cancelled during the summer months. So Justin Rose saw that all of our events were getting cancelled, and he kind of felt really bad for the women that they were about to start on the PGA Tour making money and competing. And obviously, a lot of the British girls had nothing to play in. So he felt really bad and thought, well, I can do something about this. I'll chuck, I think it was about 35 grand. I'll chuck that into the pot and I'll create these. I think there was about 5 or 6 events. I didn't play because I was in Australia, but so he just basically created a mini tour. And then from that, there's been huge interest, and, he gained a few other companies to jump on board to chuck a little bit money into it as well. So the girls had something to play in to keep the competitive edge and earn some money. And, and that's what we need. We need the support from our male counterparts to shine the light and say that, these girls are good at golf too. and he gained a huge following and exposure from that for doing something and giving back to the women's game. And it was from his wife as well. His wife said, well, how difficult it is for the women and how hard it is to gain sponsorship for them. Why can't we do something to help? So as a couple, they really supported the Ladies European Tour and all the girls and players on it, and created these one-day events throughout England during the summer months. And I think they're going to continue through to next year, and hopefully they're going to try and make it bigger and better, and try and gain more sponsors and more people to chuck in some money to raise the game in England, Wales and Scotland.
It wouldn't take a lot for a few Justin Roses to come on board together and go, do you know what, we're going to take the top 150 in the UK or whatever, make these tournaments either a bit bigger in the number of days, or here's a prize fund, there's 10 tournament, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And their voice and following would put you guys on the map even more than you are already, which would instantly then get more recognition from the press, from potential TV, even if it's regionalised or local TV to begin with, and then sponsors. And again, that is chicken and egg and a domino effect. Yeah. It would just start growing and growing and growing even quicker than it is at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, I'm assuming that's what I think that he was hoping for, that to draw up a bit of attention and a bit of a challenge towards the other guys, and say, look, I'm chipping in 30 grand, 35 grand. Do you want to match it? And then before now, you get 10 guys doing that. Then there's mini tour, for the girls to play in. And I think that's kind of small change in a lot of those guys' pockets.
For some of them, yeah, definitely. It'd be a favour to us.
Yeah. Well, I think a few of them could fund our entire tour.
Yeah, 100, no doubt. Do you interact with the guys a lot then? I mean, I suppose when you're away, you're playing at a tour there, here, there and everywhere. But when there's big British events or anything like that, do you interact with them? Do you see them a lot?
No, we don't, exactly for that reason. Most of the time, there's only one event, Morocco, where we're actually at the same golf course, two events, sorry, at the same golf course at the same week. Yeah. So we play on the blue course and they play on the red course. So there's literally one course on either side. It's the same golf club. And that's the Morocco Ladies Open. So that's one event that we're at the same venue the same week. And the other is the Vic Open, which is held in Australia.
Yeah.
And that's one of the events that's try to seek equality in the game. And there's 156 men, 156 women, 2 golf course, 2 trophies and 2 checks. So the men play for $1 million Australian dollars, and the women play for $1 million Australian dollars.
Yeah.
So it's one of the only events that has actually, put it out there and said, no, why should the women play for less?
Yeah.
So that's a really good event. And I think was the Irish Open a couple of years ago tried to do the same thing. This year had to change because of COVID. I don't think they could have that amount of people at the same venue at one time.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I think it's going to go that way a little bit more. I'm not saying there's going to be, mixed tours, but I think there'll be a lot more events, and I think it's attractive to sponsors. If you've got the companies that want to entertain their clients and have pro-ams and make it a great entertaining week, then having the top, 100 females, 100 males competing, why not?
It certainly makes like you look at tennis. It certainly makes tennis more interesting for me. That you look at the Williams sisters. I follow them in tennis as much as I would follow Djokovic or Federer.
Yeah,
because they've got that exposure. They fought for prize money to be equal. I know they do play 3 sets instead of 5. Fully aware of all stuff like that. But you're invested in it. When Wimbledon comes round, it doesn't bother me who's on the TV. I just love the fact it's competitive tennis, whether it's male or female. So I hope that, I appreciate we've probably spoken about this the male versus female. It's not about
Yeah.
that. It's more the where you guys could get to with just a little bit of a push maybe and a little bit of help to showcase the product that you guys are already delivering.
Yeah, because I think the answer is always, I see it on Twitter all the time, and I try to stay out of it as much as I can. But
Oh,
a lot.
Twitter is evil, mate.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, some people are just so mean and vicious,
Yeah.
But I see it a lot where it's ridiculous. No one wants to watch the women's golf. I'm a 12 handicapper and I could beat a female professional, and you just think you have no idea of
Yeah.
what it takes at all, and it's not about the male and female. It's more about having the opportunity to showcase what the women have got on TV. So people can only watch what is put on TV.
Yeah.
So, them saying that, oh no, we want to watch the men's all the time. And well, why not give it a chance and put it, put 50% of women's golf on there and 50% of men's. And then let's see at the end of it, and then you've got stats, you've got figures to actually show, okay, yeah, this is watched more, then we'll put that more on TV and they get bigger prize checks. But until that actually happens, where you have 50% of the media writing about women in women in sport in newspapers, magazines, and 50% on the TV, then you can't have a fair argument, because this hasn't been an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 10 under is 10 under. Doesn't matter if you're male or
Exactly.
female. Like, it's still good golf. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
and that's the difference where I feel you guys probably have got some advantages over sports, maybe like rugby or football. On one team, there is a disparity between the best and the worst player, where 10 under is 10 under. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I hope, like, listening to it, I'm glad I've got a better understanding now, I suppose, of the women's game, which it seems like it is in good health, but could be in a far better position. But also just what it's like, I suppose, day to day for you. Like, who plans your tours and your travel and all that sort of stuff, the admin side of things? So I can't imagine Rory McIlroy sat on Skyscanner going, "Oh, I need a flight to Dubai next week and so the week after," or whatever. Like, how do you do all that?
Me. So yeah, I am pretty much my accountant, my travel agent. At the moment, I'm practicing on my own, and so yeah, it can, in comparison, again, if you go to team sports, rugby, football, you're sent a schedule. You have to be at training at this time. This is what we're doing at training. This is how long training is going to be. We will provide you food at this time, this time, this time. Then you get a day off. Then you've got to do this on whatever day.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you get a paycheck in your bank every single month, regardless of your performance. If you play terrible, doesn't matter, you get your paycheck. Whereas, for us in golf, regardless of what level, what tour, what gender, most of the time it's down to you as the manager of yourself. So I'm aware of what things I need to work on, strength, fitness side of things, golf side of things, where I need to improve, which areas I need to get better. So I have to manage my entire schedule and program to improve myself. So
Yeah.
I haven't got, again, it comes down to finance. I could, if I was Rory McIlroy, I could have my own nutritionist who comes and cooks my meals every single meal of the day, and have my physiotherapist come and give me a session, or my personal trainer give me a session, which actually then would make me a better golfer. But I have to program all of that myself every single week, and then on top of that, manage all my accounts and also book all my flights, get on Skyscanner, find the cheapest flights, and plan everything, from booking my hotel to booking my car rental to booking my car parking for the week at Heathrow, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
All of those aspects are done by me.
Mad, like the
yeah,
stress before you even get on the first tee, like the stress just to get to one of these tournaments. Like 99% of us don't see that.
yeah, I think it's whereas I see it as, it's just part of my job. I've been doing it for
Yeah.
13 years. So to flick onto Skyscanner or Kayak or whatever, booking.com, to book whatever I need to book and book a car hire. That is part of my job. Like, I don't see it as anything other than that. But yeah, I guess to the outsiders, that could be quite stressful. You know, if I was to say, right, okay, you're playing in Saudi next week, you've got to book all of these things, and then you've got to get from Saudi, but you've got to get to the next event in Dubai by this time to book a practice round, to play a practice round, to then book your physio session and book your transfer. Yeah, it probably would be stressful, but it's part of my job, and I've got used to it. And you've got to get used to it if you want to be out there competing. You've got to do it.
How did you get into golf then? So, what was that journey for you getting to? I wouldn't know how you become a pro, not a clue. So, how did you get into golf and then get through that journey?
Yeah, so it was pretty much, I played every sport. You know, I used to bloody stand out in the field at the age of probably 9, and my brother was launching these weighted, as a scrum half, these weighted bloody rugby balls at me with his mate Gavin Henson kicking the balls, and I would be running down the field to go and catch them to throw them back to him so we could continue kicking and passing. So I used to do all the sports imaginable, and then it was just through friends in school at Pencoed primary school. They were going to Saturday morning free junior coaching. So I just said to my parents, I didn't know, like, my dad doesn't play golf, and nor does my mum. So I just said, oh, you know, my friends are going to this. Can I go? And they said, yeah, that's fine. We'll take you. So obviously back then I was 11. So we're talking, what was it, 98, probably like the Tiger Woods era. You had to show up in the right gear. I couldn't go in at tracky bottoms and a t-shirt or anything. So I remember that, like, the couple of nights before the Saturday, my mum was like, all right, we're going to have to go and get you things. So we went to Marks and Spencer's. I had to get these ugly old lady bloody chinos and this disgusting navy, like, knitted jumper with a collar underneath. And then I had these horrendous bloody white leather golf shoes with metal spikes underneath with, like, one of those leather tongue flaps to cover your legs. So I had all this, and at that time, actually, there was a little golf shop in Pencoed. So I went and got, like, a club, I don't know, whatever he had in his secondhand kind of basket, and took that with me. And that's how it started. And we used to have free junior coaching, and I met my coach, who's still my coach today, John Peters. And then I had individual lessons. So probably, I don't know, maybe 2 months of the junior coaching. I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. And I think, you know, John would say that, oh yeah, you had kind of some sort of natural ability. Why don't you come and have individual lessons? So I started that. And it progressed from there. I mean, I got my handicap down. I think I was age 13, and I got it for 2 years. I got it down to handicap of 10. And I went to it was one of the biggest, well, it was the biggest Welsh event. It was the Welsh Girls, and it was up in North Wales. So I went along to that 1 year, and I did really well. So then, you know, I was just playing these matches. I was 2 years in, so it's really new. Everything's new. And then I got selected for the girls under 18s Welsh team, which plays like a home international. So it's the 4 nations against each other over a week. And that was the under 18s team, and I was 13, and I was like, oh, like, this wasn't in the plan. Like, I just came here to gain a bit of experience. So it progressed from there. I played county, I played country from the age of 13, and until I turned pro at 19, in every age grade. So under 18s, 16s, 18s, 21s, and international. And then, you know, I had a few offers to go to the States for scholarship, but I was just so stubborn. I just knew that I wanted to play competitively. I wanted to make it my job. So I didn't go down going to the States route. I just worked in Tesco's for a year, competed, you know, in all the amateur events, and I worked my butt off, really, and planned to go to the Ladies European Tour School in the October of 2007. And I had a really, really good couple of weeks. Finished second, fourth at first stage, second at final stage. So I almost won the event. To gain my full tour card, and I've kept it every single year since. So And that's the kind of progression, really. It was all through kind of the same as, rugby, football. You go through the mini juniors, you get to, your county cap and your boys cap, and then under 21s and national.
Yeah.
And then you get yourself into the regional squad. So it's pretty much this similar kind of stepping stones. So turned pro at the age first year on tour was 20. So scary that it's 13 years on now.
I wouldn't have had a clue. Like, I just assumed it's so stupid. I just assumed, like, if you got your handicap down and down and down, you could just, like, apply to be a pro ever based on you continually getting scores and then off you go type thing. Like, I didn't.
Yeah, well,
I guess signed by a team, are you?
Yeah, I guess the different flip to that is, so every golf club you go to, there's like a teaching professional.
Yeah.
So that's different to what I do. So they can get their handicap down. I think you can get to handicap 4, and then you can apply and to turn professional and do like a PGA teaching degree.
Okay.
So I've done 2 years of that for my teaching qualifications, just like your coaching badges or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can apply to do this PGA. So it's a 3-year-long coaching course.
Yeah.
So each teaching professional, so when you go to a golf club, there is a head professional. So they're a professional golfer, but it's a different professional golfer to what I am. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
And they play in like regional events against the PGA pros.
Yeah.
Whereas I do it competitively for my job, for paycheck. So there is a difference.
I wondered that because, like, you go to Vale, Celtic Manor, it's like, oh yeah, there's a pro in there, and you're like, never seen or heard. Like, I don't know who it is. Like, well, like, how good are they if they're working there? But that makes loads of sense now. You're away. You're away like 28 tournaments a year, but they play regionally, and then obviously they're working in a different capacity then as a pro.
Yeah, so their majority of their earnings is purely down to coaching and teaching, and sometimes the shop as well. So they buy in the product and sell the product. So
I got you.
The majority of their job is teaching, and that's how they'll earn their money. And very rarely, when you do your PGA teaching qualification, you play after that.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys that I know, my coach included, he probably hasn't played. He probably plays once in a blue moon. He never gets the opportunity to be able to, compete and play regularly. So, yeah, it is quite different, difficult to understand, because there is a difference in, I hear quite a few people, oh yeah, my cousin's brother's son is a professional golfer. I'm like, all right, okay, well, like, what kind? Because there's 2 different kinds.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's interesting, and it's hard to explain, but once you kind of grasp it, it's easy to understand.
Well, you've mentioned Saudi a few times, and I know you've got 3 tour wins. Is that right? I had you down for the British Masters 2012, Welsh National 2016, and WPGA International 2017. Obviously, you mentioned Saudi a couple of times, and you were top. I think, was it day 3 going into day 4? Tied 6 in the end. Yeah. How do you manage 3 quality days, and then, I mean, a top 6 finish is still class. Like, 99% of us could only dream of that. But for you, being top and then coming 6, how do you manage your, I suppose, emotions and yourself leading into that day 4? And what's the pressure feel like from day 1 to day 4? And talk us through that in that 4-day format, like the different roller coaster of emotions that you kind of go through.
Yeah, well, it was funny. I was discussing it earlier, a couple of days ago, actually, that, that week, we played in Dubai the week before, and my performance wasn't very good. I was playing fairly good, but the grains were quite grainy. So the strength of the grass really pushes the ball. So, and we were playing under floodlights. So I wasn't a massive fan of the floodlights. So that week was kind of not the best preparation to go into Saudi.
Yeah.
So when I got to Saudi, I did a bit of work on the golf swing because I wasn't that happy with it. And my range sessions, prior to tournament, so we had 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday's preparation. So you play the golf course twice, maybe playing the Pro-Am on the Wednesday. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into before the Thursday to Sunday. So those first few days, I was playing okay, but if I looked, early on in the week, I would have never said I would finish top 6.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I would have taken it on the Monday, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was as soon as the announcer on the Thursday said Lydia Hall from Wales teed off, I had the ball on the string.
Yeah.
Literally wherever I was aiming, it was just one of those weeks that the ball was going wherever I wanted. It was like, not like my darts, but Michael Van Gerwen's darts.
Yeah.
Wherever he's throwing it, it was going, hitting the fairways, hitting it close into the pins. So it wasn't just about, hitting the greens. I was hitting it close. And the greens were quite tricky because there was a lot of sections to each green. So it was almost like 3 greens within one because there was a few different tiers. So yeah, I just felt really good and confident going into the, that Thursday morning. And I think the first day I had the 66. So, obviously take that any single day. And I was, funny enough, in 2 weeks prior to that, I changed my putter. I've gone in between putters all year. And I went back to the one that I've been probably using the most in the last 6 years. And this thing, I was happy, but so frustrated with myself because, I was putting so good. I was just annoyed that I hadn't been using that for the last kind of 2 years. So from the Thursday, I was just really happy, happy with my game, happy with my performance, but mainly happy with how I controlled myself and managed myself emotionally. There was no highs of good shots, no lows when I hit a bad shot. I was just quite calm and collected for the entire time. So going into the second day, I had no expectations. Sometimes you might finish around a 66 and think, I've got to do that again. But it was almost as if it hadn't happened. So going into round 2, I wasn't really thinking about that I'd shot 6 under and I was, a couple off the lead or whatever. I was just thought, right, okay, let's do it again. Let's see how many birdies I can get. My plan was to try and get the birdies on the par 5s. Not all of them are reachable. So I was laying up to the 108 yards that I like my number, my third shot in, and just seeing if I can, get up and down as many times I can from that distance to create the birdies. But yeah, every single day I just had the ball on the string and was just performing really, really nicely. And then, but I think by round 3, through 11 holes, I got to 12 under. So if we could have stopped the tournament at that point, that would have been really nice because I could have just walked away and taken the trophy because it ended up, 10 under was leading and went into the playoff on the Sunday. But yeah, going into the Sunday, the final day, obviously, it's a big event, so you're playing for a lot more money. And yeah, I can't say it was pressure, but it was more of excitement. And I was playing with 2 world-class players. You got Georgia Hall in the group, who's won the British Open. Emily Pedersen, who's leading the women, the Order of Merit, and she's already won. She had at that stage won 3 times that year already. And she's on form to win the Order of Merit, so she needs to win these events to kind of seal the deal and win the Order of Merit. So I was just really happy to be in that final group and be in contention and get those feelings back. And yeah, I got a good up and down on the first hole out of the bunker, and kind of hung in there because I wasn't playing that good, but I was getting up and down and holing a lot of putts. And I managed to pull it back through 13 holes through the par 5 and made birdie there to get, because I set myself a goal. I was a couple over par to get back to level par through 13 holes, and I did. I birdied 13 to get back to that position. So I had 5 holes left, and I have this thing where it's called Final 5. I've called it myself Final 5. So it's kind of, I generally always finish the last 5 holes, 2 or 3 under par. So I thought, right, through 13 holes, get myself back into contention. Even if I'm 1 or 2 shots back, I know I finish my rounds off well. So, I've still got a chance. And I hit, looking back, I played a silly tee shot. I was trying to be too close and too tight to a couple of the bunkers going down 14, and it bounced, and whereas it usually would bounce and kick left, it bounced and kicked right into the fairway bunker. And it's not a nice lie. It was a bit downhill, ball below my feet. The breeze is into off the right. The flag is right. So everything's kind of going against me. So I just thought, no, it's fine. Just kind of get contact. And if you hit it long, try and get it in the back left bunker. So I hit the shot that I was trying to play for my second shot, hit it into the back left bunker. I thought, that's fine. Just get up and down, get your par, and let's move on. We've still got 4 holes to go. So I get into the back left bunker, kind of just pin high, and the ball was kind of sat above my feet, but I had to play a fairly delicate shot. And I could see the way the ball was above my feet, but it looked like there was quite a lot of sand there.
Yeah.
So obviously you've got to be careful when you're playing that type of shot. 1, to not leave it in the bunker, but 2, to not and try and take, because there's obviously a lot of sand, to try and clip it out and play a clean shot. So I played the shot, and as soon as I made contact with the sand, I just knew that that's come out so dead. There's just so much sand there. And it only needed probably a foot, if not 2 feet, to carry on to the edge of the green and be fine. But it just bounced and came back in. And then my second lie, because bearing in this, up until this point, I was 100% in bunker saves.
Yeah.
So my bunker play had been unbelievable for the 3 days. I was getting up and down from everywhere. So then I get back into the bunker to play my second shot, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, shit, there's no sand underneath this golf ball. Like, I've gone from one lie which has got heaps of sand to another one which there isn't any.
Yeah.
So I had to be fairly careful there. So I played the shot and basically, cut a long story short, where there's a lot of sand in between, made a triple bogey, and that was kind of gut wrenching, because I thought I've got myself where I wanted to.
Yeah.
I've achieved that goal of getting back into position, and now I've just cocked it up in these 2 bunkers. But the more frustrating thing was my bogey on the next hole. That's what really made me angry and upset, was how I reacted to that situation. So instead of just being calm, cool, and collected and thought, it's fine, I'm not out of this, I just made it worse. So, I hit a poor tee shot, a poor second shot, and didn't get up and down and made bogey. So now I've gone from dropping 3 shots to 4 shots. So, everyone, Pedersen had a bad hole, and Georgia played fairly solid over the 2 days, because we played the Saturday and Sunday together, the 3 of us.
Yeah.
But I was more angry after I got off the golf course at how I played the 15th hole, making a bogey there, rather than being angry at the 14th hole and making a triple. So yeah,
and that's something I suppose that lots of us can relate to, because I definitely take a bad hole into the next one and try and fucking leather it or whatever I do. Like,
yeah,
like, how do you stop yourself from doing that? Because obviously you've done that now when the stakes are at their highest for you.
Yeah.
That those 4 shots were literally the difference between winning the tournament and tying 6th. What's your process to not do that again next time that you may have a bad hole?
Yeah, well, I think, and to be fair, most of the time I bounce back. So that's what it's called in golf. I'm unsure if it's called that in anything else, but bounce back. So once you've had a bad hole, your next hole is your bounce back. So generally, I'm really good. I will birdie the next hole more often than not.
Yeah.
And that's what I was so angry at, is that I know how important it is. So whenever you make an error like that, the golden rule is to make sure you do not take it into the next hole. So the golden rule is hit the fairway, hit the green, get your 2 putts, get your par, and steady the ship. That's the golden rule. And that's why I was so angry and frustrated and upset after the tournament, is that I didn't do that. And it was more about how I didn't manage myself. So the ultimate goal is, when you've put yourself in that situation, is you have to, as if your life depends on it, hit the fairway. And to be fair, I did hit the fairway, but it was a poor drive. It went nowhere.
Yeah.
I had such a long second shot in with a breeze into. I think I was going in with a 4-iron.
Yeah.
So and that was the frustrating thing, is that the process, as in the physical process, is as hard as it is trying to forget what's happened, starting all over again, and making sure that you hit that fairway, hit the green, and get, like I said, make par, steady the ship, and then reassess. I would have had 3 holes from that. So yeah, it's trying to forget what's happened, which is obviously really hard. And I feel like, after that triple on 14, I went to the toilet, I washed my hands, and I thought, this is an act of getting rid of your sins. Forget about it. So I tried to do all of those good things that, every psychologist tells you, whether it's throw the ball in the bin or do something to get rid of those feelings. But I think I was just so frustrated because every single shot, I was aware of my lie. So, going into that bunker, I knew the ball, there was a lot of sand there. And then the second shot, I knew there wasn't any sand there, but I played the shots that you can play out of those lies. Whereas, if I wasn't aware that there was no sand, or maybe that would have been, ignorance is obviously bliss. But,
yeah, of course.
I kind of tried to put everything in place to make sure that I didn't take it into the next hole. But unfortunately, sometimes those things work, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, it's so hard.
If
you don't mind, I've just got a couple of things I want to ask. I know I'm taking up a bit of your time here.
No, not at all.
What to someone like me who plays 6? I might play with your brother once or twice in the year.
Christ, don't.
I played with him at the Celtic Manor once. I think he had one of your pink drivers. It was lovely, to be fair.
Oh, my God.
That was a couple of years ago now.
He's horrendous. I mean, I think my Stake Pro Shop are still selling the golf balls that he lost up there as late balls, because he came here one day he said, "Oh, I'm playing in a company day. Can you sort me out a bag?" So I sorted out a bag with all the clubs that he needed. And I think I put something like, and this is no word of a lie, because I thought, I'm going to count how many golf balls I put in this bag and then see how many he comes back with. And I swear I put about 36 golf balls in this bag. And I said, "Oh, so like, how many balls did you lose?" He said, "Oh, I don't know. I think I've got about 5 left." I said, 5? I said, "I put 36 golf balls in that bag." He said, "No, you didn't. I haven't lost that amount of balls." I was like, well, the head pro at my state golf club is raking in money right now because he's still selling you golf balls.
So I'm going to rinse him for this. What can you give? So the average golfer like me, play for fun with their mates. Top, 2 tips that we could take it. Anyone could take in. So for me, I could drive it fairly long, so I'm a bit of a lump, but it always skews off to the right. I feel fairly comfortable when I play my irons or whatever. What 2 tips that anyone could take onto a golf course just to improve their game, whether that's mentally or physically?
Yeah, I think the simple things to make sure that, one, that your ball position is good. So with your driver, making sure that it's inside the left heel. It's all the fundamentals of the game, like your grip, making sure that's a good golf grip. So holding it in the fingers, not in the palm, because that is one of the biggest things that I see is palmy grips. So if you can imagine, a lot of people, instead of hold it in the fingers, so if you imagine holding a Tesco or any brand, any supermarket, a basket, shopping basket in your hand, you would hold it in your fingers. You wouldn't sit it in the center of your palm and carry the basket. So you've got to remember that. So that's one biggest tip, is that with your left hand, if you're right-handed, with a shopping basket, imagine you're holding your golf club like you would as a shopping basket, so that the grip is running at the base of your fingers, not through the center of your palm, because that's what I see, and that's one of the biggest faults with hitting a push slice, so that left to right shot,
Yeah.
is the way you hold it, because then the ability of your wrist and the movement of your wrist is now limited. So you can hold it, like everyone can experiment with that by holding anything in your hand, like a cricket bat, a tennis, anything. Put it in your fingers, so there's no part of your palm touching the grip, and see how your wrist moves, and then place it in your palm, and then see how limited now that your wrist is. And
I'm
that
going to
is
try this.
it's one of the biggest mistakes, is that a lot of people will hold it and it's running through the center of their palm instead of in their fingers. So
I
now
grip it so hard as well.
Yeah. And if you think of grip pressure, you should be around about a 7. If 10 is as hard as you can hold it, you want it about 7. So you want to hold it as tightly as you can without letting it go, but not too tight that actually the face and your forearms aren't rotating. And that's the biggest mistake I see in a lot of golf swings, is lifting up, coming out of the posture because they're so eager to see where the golf ball's gone. And 2 is having a bad grip that doesn't allow you to release the club and rotate that face.
I absolutely love that. I've written that down. Next time I'm at the range, I'm gonna practice this.
Yeah, but also go and get lessons. It's the easiest thing. It's 25 quid, I think, for half an hour for probably the majority of golf pros everywhere in South Wales. It's good money well spent. I mean, the dozen golf balls that you buy for 25 quid, at least you'll come back with those if you go and get a golf lesson.
That's a very good point. Well put. Are you at Hensel? Is that right?
Yeah, when COVID allows, I teach at Hensel Golf Academy, and yeah, it's great. I mean, I met the guys 2 years ago. I snapped in 2015 playing football. I snapped my ACL, so I was out of golf for 9 months. So I had to get a job. I called those, and I was doing my PGA teaching degree at the time, so it worked out really well. I could do some shop hours, earn some money, and do teaching as well. So I've been there with those for 5 years, and it's obviously really difficult to keep a strong clientele base because I'm away so much. So I do tend to explain that to people prior to having lessons, is that it's kind of on and off, because I could be away for 6-7 weeks and not home, and maybe home for 2 weeks. So but I love it, and I love helping people, and it's great to have the messages through that, when I'm away, saying, I've just won the ladies club championship, thank you so much for helping me with the golf swing. And so it brings you back down to earth when you're in Saudi and you've just made a triple on a par bloody 4, and you've potentially screwed your chance of winning the tournament. Getting those messages are really nice as well.
I love that. That's class. Where can people find you on social media?
Everything is Lydia Hall Golf. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all at Lydia Hall Golf. On my website, lydiahallgolf.co.uk. And there's a contact me page on there for whatever it may be. I do Q&As, after dinner speaking, pro-am days, celebrity golf days, all of those kind of things. Just get in touch and follow me.
So what's the future hold then? Obviously, COVID at the moment. Next season, next year, I don't know where the season's run, but next year, 2021, where are you hoping to play? Where can people potentially see you doing your thing?
Yeah, so at the moment, we've had our draft schedule sent out. So at the moment, we're looking like we might start in Kenya in February, but COVID at the moment, and then we were meant to be in South Africa in March. So at the moment, with the situation going on over there, it's probably unlikely. But we start our big bulk, and I think it's going to be a heavy schedule from May all the way through to November next year. So fingers crossed, we all stay safe, get some vaccines, and try and get rid of this horrendous virus. And that's the first, the priority. And hopefully we can get back competing full time in at least May. And I think the rumor has it, I don't know full facts, but the Rose Series is potentially starting, I think, maybe in March, but none of those. So they'll be in England. Hopefully we'll get one in Wales. I'm unsure. But for everyone based in the UK, there should be a few days of some women's golf in England, hopefully in March time.
I love that. Again, just my lack of knowledge. How is it the ladies European tour, but then you're playing in Africa? How does that? Do they? How does it work? Like it confuses me. See, I've never asked anyone. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just purely down to Kenya wanting to raise their profile to showcase that they can be a golf holiday destination.
Okay.
So that's generally where, if we go outside of Europe, like Saudi's got a goal where they want to make golf available for all.
Yeah.
So that's the reason we went there, to showcase that women can play sport, and that Saudi is now open to everyone playing sport,
Yeah.
to raise the profile of the women's game. And generally that is the goal for every country that we go to, is to either showcase that sport and women in sport is available, or showcase, the golf course in the country that we're in. So a lot of the funding and the sponsorship comes from the local authorities, to showcase the holiday destinations. So that's why we tend to go to, places outside of Europe. We've got one in Thailand, potentially in Philippines, Kenya, South Africa, India. We go there as well. So there's a lot of places outside of Europe that we do go.
I love that. That's class. It's a good
Yeah,
way.
it's awesome.
I must say, even if you're not earning millions, it's a good way to earn a living, traveling the world, and it's a lot of practice hours, a lot of work on your own, and obviously the stress, I suppose, can be a bit manic at times. But there's definitely worse ways to make a couple of quid as well.
Absolutely. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing. So I'm really happy that I can do a job that I love, that keeps me on my toes, that I feel like one day I figured out, and then the following day I feel like I've just begun. So it definitely keeps you grounded. Golf does. And there's no other job that I'd rather be doing than, traveling around the world, and you get to meet amazing people from amazing countries. And really lucky to be able to have done that for a few weeks this year.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Just a quick big thanks to Tiny Rebel Brewery. They give us beers every episode. Thanks to everyone that subscribes, downloads, rates and reviews. Have a listen to some of the episodes in the back catalogue as well. This is episode 59, so we've got 58 others. Lydia, thanks so much for coming on. That was insightful. I now feel like I understand golf more in general.
Good.
Especially ladies golf. I'm excited to see you build on your sixth place finish in Saudi and see what 2021 brings. So thank you so much. Love to have you back sometime in the future when you're winning all these tournaments and you're up there with your likes of McIlroy's. And
that would be nice.
Have a good new year and take care. We'll speak to you soon, all right?
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, Mikey.
No worries. You take care. See you soon, all right?
And you. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.